Hi, my name's Heather. I'm an alcoholic. Um, so this is my first year that I haven't come in with notes, and that for me is progress. Um, but yeah, this time last year, I sat in a similar chair, and Clint was sitting in a chair over there. And it was a very different picture to this year. But I look around the room, and there are just so many people in this room who are really close to me and who've really walked the road with me, and I'm really grateful for all of you. I don't have notes, but I do have two things that I will be reading as part of my share. When I thought about the last 5 years of my life and of life in recovery, the two words that kind of came to mind were love and loss. I think, if I sum it up, it's not just the fact that I fell in love. It was that I learned how to love myself. And through that process, I learned how to love other people. And when it comes to loss, it was, obviously the obvious, like losing Clint and Jess. But also it was losing all my ideas of who I thought I was, and losing my ideas of who I thought I should be and how life should look. And it was losing the need for me to be in control, and learning to let go and let God have control. Now I'll go back to the beginning. So I was born into a family of 3 other siblings. I was the youngest, and I grew up in Cape Town and went to school there. If I look back, I can see that from a young age, from like 10 or 11, maybe even younger, even at that stage, I was looking like boys were a big thing for me, and I think it was mostly that I felt validated if I had a boyfriend. I mean, if I think about my daughter having a boyfriend at this age, it freaks me out completely. But there I was at the age of 10, and he was my boyfriend. And we went to movies together, and we wrote little love notes to each other. And then we broke up, and he got together with another girl. And that's like pulled my world apart, because suddenly I was, for the first time, stuck in a situation where I felt less than, and I felt like she was better than me, and she had bigger boobs than me, and she was cleverer than I was, and that's why he had dumped me for her. And so that was my perception, was that I wasn't good enough, because this boy at the age of 10, and that's when you're supposed to be having lots of different boyfriends and girlfriends, but anyway, not in my head. I thought we were going to live happily ever after. And that's kind of, that way of thinking kind of carried on through school and through high school. And I think, it came from a deep place of just not feeling good enough. And I can blame it on my relationship with my dad, and I can blame it on my first boyfriend, Roland Hallam. And the reality is, like, that was just my feeling, was I'm not good enough. And I needed somebody outside of myself to make me feel like I was. I dated a few boys through school, and then when I was in about standard 7, that's when I remember the first time I picked up a drink. And it was just with a friend of mine, and it was in the afternoon, and we raided her dad's liquor cabinet, and I have no idea what we drank, and I then went to a ballet class straight from there. I rode my bike, drunk, and got to ballet and did my ballet class, and I was at the bar next to a girl who was quite a rebel, and she said to me, she took one look at me and she said, "Heather, have you been drinking?" And I had this big grin on my face, and I said, yeah, maybe just a little. And she thought I was quite cool, and so that then made me feel quite cool, because, yeah, she validated that in me. And the next time I remember drinking, because yeah, I wasn't like a big partier at school, but there was a house party that I went to, and I just drank whatever was available and landed up in the pool in my clothes, and then was taken home and subsequently climbed out of my bedroom window to walk back to the party. My sister and her boyfriend were at home, and they managed to hide the fact that I was drunk from my parents. But then my parents got a call because I'd been picked up walking down the road. And so my parents then knew that I was properly wasted. And yeah, there were no consequences really, except that I had a hockey match the next day and went there still drunk and was then suspended from first team hockey, and my reaction was self-pity and poor me, and how can you be so hard on me, you know. And yeah, then got through the rest of high school and went overseas. And then I was free, you know. I didn't have my parents on my back. I didn't have any good influences around me, and I drank lots and I messed around with lots of boys, and yeah, that was all okay for me at that stage, except that, yeah, none of it ever made me feel like I was good enough. Like when I was in the moment of being drunk or kissing some random person, yeah, then maybe I felt like, yeah, I'm cool. But afterwards I always woke up feeling like shit, and probably worse than I had before. Yeah, and I kind of went through, yeah, these ups and downs. I'd been brought up in a very religious family, and somewhere along the line, like when I was about 12, I remember saying to my parents, I don't want to go to your church anymore. And I found a church that kind of fitted with me. And so I went there, and that was probably where my relationship with some kind of relationship with God started. But I never ever felt like I fitted in, you know. I never felt like I was like any of these other people around me. I always felt like I was like less than, and I couldn't fit into this mold, because I would go to church on a Sunday, and my pattern was I would go to church, I'd say, I'm so sorry, I've done this, I've done that, I've done whatever. And there was a huge amount of guilt and shame associated with my behavior. And then kind of trying to make things better, or trying to make amends, or trying to say to God, like, please help me to stop doing this. But yeah, I, at that stage, was kind of just constantly taking my will back, doing whatever I wanted, and then kind of getting to that place of guilt and shame, and I'm sorry, and let's try this again. And I could never do it. I could never stay on the right path, really. Anyway, I then started studying, and at the end of my second year of studying, I went overseas. My family were over there, and I went to go and work during my holidays. And another friend of mine who I was studying with invited me over one afternoon, and I went to her flat, and I saw this creature on her flat floor, and he was passed out, and I thought he was quite interesting. And that was the first time I met my to-be husband. And I should have run a fucking mile. But I didn't, because he was intriguing, and of course I thought things would be amazing. Anyway, I then met him again at a bar. We all met up the one evening, and him and I kind of chatted and hit it off, so much so that I had to go home with him that night. And yeah, I was quite proud of myself, because I didn't sleep with him. And Anyway, we met up about 2 weeks later, and I did sleep with him. And I then got on a plane and came back to South Africa and started my 3rd year of study. And a month in, I found out I was pregnant. And yeah, my parents were in Canada at the time, and I kind of had this, I always had this thing, like this feeling that I need to take responsibility for what I've done, you know, and I'm such a bad girl, and this is my punishment. Because that's how I saw all of this stuff. That's how I saw my relationship with God, was like, things are good when I'm good, and He loves me when I do the right stuff. And when I do the wrong stuff, then I have consequences, and I need to be man enough to deal with them. Anyway, I phoned Guy, who was still in London, and told him I was pregnant, and I told him I was keeping the baby, and he could decide how involved or uninvolved he wanted to be, but this is what I was doing. And I got all my ducks in a row, went to go see somebody at my college, and told them I was pregnant, but that I wanted to carry on studying through UNISA, and they pulled some strings for me. And I then dropped out of college, and Guy came to visit me once during my pregnancy, and again, I mean, the signs were all there, and everything had changed, you know. I was now pregnant and carrying this baby, and making decisions that were best for her, just in terms of not drinking and not smoking, and yeah, a guy came to visit, and he was still, like, partying was his thing, you know, and he was there to see his mates, and that's pretty much what he did. And yeah, I remember just crying, but most of the time that he was here during that time. But there was nothing in me. There was no sense of self-worth that was enough to go, I will not be treated like this. Goodbye. I don't want anything more to do with you. And yeah, and things kind of carried on and off with him and I for the next, like, 7 years from then, I would think. And in the interim, we fell pregnant with our second child. And yeah, by this stage he'd moved down to Cape Town, and then just after I found out I was pregnant with Jess, he moved up to Durban. And I was in a good space. It was probably one of the happiest, like, healthiest times of my life, that during that pregnancy. I had a great job. Tyler was in a little school, and she was happy, and we were living in our own little place. And then I had Jess, and Guy came down for her birth, and after that we chatted and kind of said, if this is ever going to work, we need to be in the same place. And I didn't want to leave Cape Town, but I decided to move. And so a month after Jess was born, I packed up my flat and got in my car, and we drove up to Durban. And yeah, Guy and I then moved in together, and we waited about 18 months and then got married. And yeah, like, I remember I remember getting out of the car in my wedding dress and giving my dad a hug and kind of holding on to him so tightly, because I wasn't quite sure about what I was about to do, but I did it anyway. And yeah, our honeymoon was pretty much revolved around getting wasted. And I came back from the honeymoon with bruises all over me because I'd fallen over a table, and yeah, we'd fought and we'd done stupid shit. And yeah, and about 3 months after that, we got drunk at home the one night, and I went running down the road, and I rang the doorbell of a guy who I'd met through the work that I was doing in Toiti, and I rang his doorbell in the middle of the night, and he came outside, and I said, Happy New Year, and I gave him a big kiss. And that was kind of the start of my infidelity during our marriage. And that was probably the most innocent of it. And I suppose, yeah, I always justified my behavior. I always kind of justified it around, you know, a guy's not treating me right, or he's not giving me what I need, and so fuck him, I'll get it somewhere else. And I had that justification for so long, and I blamed him for so much. And it was always him who had the problem, and him who had the drinking issues, and so if he could carry on like that, I would carry on like this. And I didn't see my stuff in it for a long time. And things just progressively got worse. And yeah, towards the end of my drinking days, we had a party for Guy's birthday. For some reason, I always behaved my worst around Guy's birthday. And that night we had a whole group of his friends around, and everyone was drunk, including me. And I was sitting next to a guy who was super hot, but I mean, my husband was sitting across the table from us, and I had my hand on this guy's leg, and I was flirting terribly with him. And I don't remember much from that night, but I remember enough to know that I kissed some other guy who's super tall, and I almost slept with Guy's brother. And that's where I was at. And there was nothing between Guy's brother and I. There'd never been anything before that. It was just, that's the dark space that I was in. And yeah, that's what I did. And a few days, sorry, but like a few days later, Guy found out about it. A friend of his had told him what had happened, and yeah, he came home, and I remember having this feeling of, I don't really care if this is the end. I don't want the marriage that we had, and so if this is how it's going to end, so be it. This very like, I don't give a shit attitude, and anyway, it was at that point that I kind of said to Guy, okay, listen, I'll control my drinking. I'll make sure that I only drink certain things, or that I'm not in situations where there are any men around. I'll get on top of this. And I did that for about 2 months. And then I went to have an innocent evening with a girlfriend, and landed up, her and I sat outside drinking. The kids were with us. She had a little boy. We put the kids to bed, and her and I sat outside drinking. And yeah, she then pulled a bit of a move on me, and I didn't say no. And so her and I had a big snog, and then we spoke about a whole lot of stuff, and that was kind of it. And the next day she said to me, Heather, you can't tell Guy about this. I think it'll be the last straw. And I said, I'm not lying to him anymore. I can't do this anymore. And as I was driving home the next day, a good friend of mine phoned me, and I said to her, this is what I've done. And she said to me, Heather, you've got to stop drinking. And I said, you're right. And that was kind of the moment where I realized that me trying to control it, and me trying to control my behavior, and me trying to stop doing this and stop doing that just wasn't flipping working anymore. And I went home and I told Guy, and he freaked out, and he told me I was going to be lucky if I ever saw my children again. And that was it for me. And in the middle of all of this, like prior to this whole thing going down, I had started going to Al-Anon because I was so convinced that Guy was an alcoholic and I needed help learning how to deal with him. And Al-Anon kind of gave me the basics about this disease, and it gave me enough insights to learn things like Guy's behavior wasn't about me, just like my behavior wasn't about him. It was about me trying to make me feel better. And yeah, because I'd been in Al-Anon, it was then quite easy for me to. I phoned a lady that I knew from Al-Anon, and I said to her, I'm not going to be coming to Al-Anon anymore. I need to start going to AA. And that's when I went to my first meeting. And yeah, I remember my first meeting very clearly. It was in Umkomaas, and I remember sitting there and listening to the shares and kind of going, I think there was part of me that was still doubting that I was actually an alcoholic, but I knew there was something very wrong with me. And I was desperate enough to kind of go, I don't care what I have to call myself, I just want to flip and get better. I just don't want to do this anymore. And as I listened to people's shares, I kind of realized everybody's got a different story, but I could relate so much to the thinking and to the feeling, and I had the same thinking and the same feeling. And the way that I fixed it was through drinking and through men, or women, clearly. And yeah, that was the very start of my journey in recovery. And so that was, April 2012. So I'd stopped drinking and started coming to AA meetings, and Guy stopped drinking for about 6 months. And I remember that probably being like the best part of our marriage, because finally it felt like we were on the same page. But he'd always only said he was going to stop for 6 months, and so once the 6 months were up, he started again, and he just picked up where he left off from. And yeah, it took me, and again, like I still was falling into those patterns of Guy's the problem, Guy's doing this, Guy's doing that. But slowly through recovery, I started learning that I couldn't do anything about anybody else's behavior, and I had to only look at my part, and I had to keep my side of the street clean. And obviously, part of my disease or my fix was men. And when I first came into the rooms, I was flippin' petrified of men. I was petrified of them, and I was petrified of myself around them. And so I didn't really engage much with men, and that was exactly what I needed to do at the time. And yeah, then, I remember quite clearly the one day sitting at home and thinking back to my pattern in my relationship with Guy, because I'd finally got to a point of going, okay, let me remove his stuff and stop blaming, and let me look at my stuff. And I remember looking back and kind of seeing how I had always chosen to get back together with him, then things got rough, so I would break it off. And then all he had to do was be nice and say the right things and do the right things, and I'd be back there. And we just had this cycle going round and round and round. And yeah, I suppose with that realization, I kind of finally decided that actually I couldn't be in this relationship anymore, and it wasn't so much about what Guy was doing. It was that I needed to choose something healthier for me. My sense of worth had built up enough to kind of go, I want something different for me. I desperately wanted my marriage to work, and I remember being on the phone to Corrine going, I can't get divorced, I just can't do this. And she said to me, Heather, it's not the worst thing in the world. And it was just simple stuff. Like my thinking was so rigid in so many ways, you know, and I had such strong ideas of what's right and what's wrong, and I needed to label everything as one of those. And it meant that I didn't allow myself to experience things and then find out what was right and what was not okay for me. Anyway, I'm going to read you something. So this is what I wrote on that same day that I kind of reached that point of realization about my relationship with Guy. I sit in the sun and the tears come. My heart is heavy and my soul is sore. I feel small and scared and lonely. I don't want to have to close this door. A little girl who has lost her dream but doesn't want to let it go. Big girl decisions feel so scary. Isn't there another way? Hamsters spend life going round and round, safe in their wheel of confinement. I can choose to be a hamster, or I can choose to run free, break out of the patterns that confine me. Step into the unknown, walk through the pain, or keep doing the same thing again and again. I have to face reality. Denial is a farce. I just wish it wasn't so hard. I wish things were simpler, that our roads were intertwined, that our directions were similar and our hearts in line. Reality is I can't change someone else, can't expect them to be what I think is best. I have to accept them for who they are and then realize that we're on different paths. Nothing changes, they say, if things stay the same. Insanity keeps doing the very same thing and hoping this time things will turn differently. I feel so small, so scared, so alone. Don't want to make big girl decisions on my own. I can live in a dream of what I want to be, or I can realize what's real and set myself free. Even as I write, I don't want to believe. Fear wants to jump back on the hamster's wheel. I'm not alone on this brand new path. I'm never alone when I am with God. He sees it all and he knows my heart. He has what's best. I can leave the rest. That I wrote on the 3rd of September in 2013, and by the 27th of September, I told Guy I wanted a divorce. And yeah, it wasn't a clean-cut thing. It took a while, but yeah, I knew I was doing the right thing, and I remember getting to a point of total surrender, and I think that is, like, I've reached those points over and over again in recovery. Obviously, I needed to get to that point when I first came in of going, I can't do this anymore, and I can't fix myself. And God, please, will you do for me what I can't do for myself? And this was another situation where it was tough. It was hard, walking away from what I'd known for 10 years or whatever it had been. But yeah, I got through that, and then yeah, I mean, being in recovery, I remember a day phoning Corinne and saying to her, and this was, so I was now living in my own place, and I phoned her and I said, I felt enough, I've cried enough, I've had enough, I don't want to be sad anymore. And she said to me, Heather, the only way to get through your feelings is by feeling them. And she said, the more you resist them, the longer it's going to take. And I remember at that point kind of writing down some stuff about my feelings. And she had said to me, describe your feelings in colors and in textures, connect with them properly, and then write about them. And for me, writing has always been, yeah, a huge part of kind of expressing my heart. And I did that, and it kind of, all of these little chunks along the way have helped me to get through whatever I've needed to get through. And yeah, I needed to allow myself to feel the loss of my marriage. And then yeah, you know, I kind of, it took time, but I then I remember going through a stage where I had a couple of guys who asked me out for coffee, and I was like, no, thank you. No, I'm not interested. And again, like I see that as such growth, and it's growth as a result of being in recovery and finally learning what is okay for me, what do I like, what don't I like, because I didn't know any of that stuff before. I didn't know who I was, and so I didn't know what I wanted. And yeah, I then went to a convention a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago now, and that's where I met Clint. And he got my number off Danny. Thanks, Danny. And he phoned me a couple of days after the convention, and he asked me out for coffee. And again, I said, no, thank you, I'm not dating. And he said, it's not a date, it's just coffee. And I said, I'm not interested, thank you. And it was the first time that after I put down the phone, I kind of felt, damn, like I actually want to go for coffee with this guy. But things have been quite messy with Guy since our divorce. It hadn't been a clean cut, walk away, we hate each other now. It had been messy. And yeah, what was quite stark to me was that I was saying no to Clint because I was involved in this messiness with Guy. And suddenly, for the first time, I was going, you know what, I don't want messy. I don't want messy. Like this stuff is not going to work with Guy. And so a week later, I sent Clint a message and I said, yes, please, I will have coffee with you. And that's what we did. We had coffee. I went to his birthday. He bought me a present on his birthday. That totally freaked me out. And we did coffee for a while. We would meet up in the middle of the day and we would have coffee and we would chat. And it was slow and it was a process. And yeah, I remember him being so patient with me because I had no idea how to do this healthy relationship stuff. And the first time he kissed me, I got in my car and I was like, fuck. I didn't know what to do with myself. I got home, I phoned Green, I said, I can't do this. He's now kissed me and I can't do this anymore. I don't actually think I like him. And Green said to me, Heather, don't run. That's all I'm saying to you now is don't run. Okay, Green, okay. She said, if you want to take a step back, that's all you need to tell Clint. Just phone him, say, Clint, listen, this is moving a bit fast for me. I mean, anyway. And take it from there. That's exactly what I did. So, phoned Clint, said, listen, I need to go back to not kissing. And he was so cool about it. He just said, no problem. I'll wait for you as long as I need to. And that's what we did. And that lasted about a week. And then I really wanted to kiss him. And so then I was ready, you know. And I think recovery has it's given me the ability to listen to myself and to listen to my gut and to value that. You know, like that is so important for me, is that I need to listen to that stuff. And I need to be honest about it. And there was no fear involved. I wasn't scared of him running away. If he ran away, that's his stuff, you know. And then it's not meant to be. I think part of this whole amazing journey is that I've got the faith to trust that things will unfold as they need to, if I allow them to, if I don't run a mile, and if I just allow things to unfold, you know, they will become clearer. And that's what I did through my relationship with Clint, is I listened to my gut and I was honest with him about how I was feeling. Our communication was really good. And it was a beautiful, gentle process. From his side, he taught me what real love is, because I didn't really have a clue. and he loved me absolutely unconditionally. And that was a first for me, you know. I didn't have to earn it, I didn't have to behave a certain way. And I think through Clint, I kind of gained a better understanding of how God loves me as well. Is that it's not about what I do or don't do, it's that it's unconditional love. And that was a beautiful process, you know. And then, at the end of 2016, so Clint and I had been together for about a year and 2 months. We went away for a weekend, which Clint had been wanting to take us away for a while. And he wanted to get into nature. And so we went to Sicily and Umfolozi for the weekend, Clint and me and my girls. And it was a great weekend. My oldest daughter never liked Clint. She never liked the idea of Clint, I think. But she will still say to this day, she didn't like him then, she doesn't like him now. And I have to just respect that. I kind of go like, how can you not like Clint? I mean, Clint's Clint. Anyway, Tyler's got her stuff in the mix, and there's a lot of it. Anyway, so we went away for this great weekend, and on our way back, I don't remember anything, but we were involved in a really serious car accident. And in that accident, I lost Jess and I lost Clint. And you know, it's been obviously the biggest tragedy that I could ever have imagined. And I'd always kind of thought if I ever lost somebody close to me, that would be the end of it for me. There would be no point in living. And I could never imagine actually living through something like that. And it's been an amazing journey. I've been surrounded by so much love, and I think it's been a gentle process, you know. It's kind of been as I've been ready, and this is where God does for me what I can't do for myself, because He only gives me as much as I can handle. And so I've only dealt with the loss kind of as I've been ready to. And it's been this gentle process. And my life is not over. My life, I'm fully alive. I remember saying that in hospital when I came out of my coma. I'm alive, I'm fully alive. Because there were definitely moments where it was very touch and go. And I'm really grateful to be alive. And I believe that, there's great purpose for my life. Obviously there's still a lot of healing on all levels that needs to take place, but I can honestly say that coming through a tragedy like that, having recovery behind me is what's got me through it, as well as it has. And simple things like practicing acceptance and having faith, and knowing that in God's world there are no accidents, and that Clint and Jess lived full, beautiful lives while they were here. And their time is up. But, and I do. I miss them terribly. Anyway, I'm going to finish off with one last thing that I wrote. I wrote this on the 6-month anniversary. That's not really a nice word for these things, but anyway, 6 months since the accident. And I'm going to finish with this. It's 6 months today to the day. 6 months since our lives were irreparably changed. In some ways, I can't recall life before the accident. Life on my legs with the ability to come and go as I pleased. I'm used to this new version of normal, and I don't resent it. But on days like today, Sundays especially, my heart feels heavier than it did before. Heavier and sadder. I miss my people, my Clint and my Jess. I miss Jess's body and how full of life she was. I miss having her in my arms and watching her walk. usually in a pair of my heels and with her class in tow. She spent hours calling each child by name and teaching them really important things each day. She was strict and took no nonsense. I miss her little arms wrapping around my legs in the morning while she was still warm and wrinkled from bed. She needed a cuddle before she was prepared to start her day. I miss her enthusiasm and her passion and her frustration. All of these contributed to who she was. I see Jess these days in the free things that fly, in the birds and the butterflies. I feel her on the days when I barely laugh with a friend. She is in those joyful moments, and I know she is okay. I wish that my time with Clint could have been longer. I miss his face and him being always in my corner. The things he taught me pop often into my head. While contemplating writing today, I remembered him saying, "Just do it." And that is how he lived. He got things done, he made things happen. He believed in people until they learned to believe in themselves. He lived fiercely and without reservation. He lived to be of service to others. I miss us just being. He helped me to see that I am enough, just because I am. And I know that if he was here, he would have been encouraging me every step of the way and telling me I'm beautiful while I adjusted to this fractured body of mine. He also would have told me to get on with living and to live life to the full. Today I choose life, and I choose to live it fully. I choose to be me, to love and accept myself as I am, and to see my great worth. Worth which is not based on how I look or what I have or how healed I am. It is inherent worth, and we all have it. I choose to value my friends and my family greatly. This experience has shown me how well loved I am and how powerful the human connection is. I choose to be real and to be vigilantly honest. I don't want to pretend or hide in any way. I choose to ask for help when I need it and to stop being so bloody self-reliant. I choose to find gratitude in the small things and to express that gratitude. It's not enough to think great things about other people. I choose to thank people for their time and for their contribution to my life. There is a great purpose for each one of our lives. Today, I choose to find and fulfill mine. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.